Welcome to the Alchemy Experience podcast, where transformation isn't just talked about, it's lived. I'm Erin, and around here, we're turning breakdowns into breakthroughs, pain into power, and survival into serious thriving. Whether I'm flying solo or vibing with a badass guest, we dive into all the things on health, creating beautiful relationships, and building wealth. We're keeping it real, raw, and ridiculously empowering. It gets a little juicy, a little bit wild, and super inspiring. This isn't just another podcast, it's your permission slip to evolve loud, proud, and on purpose. Let's go light the world on fire. Welcome back, guys, to the Alchemy Experience podcast. I have Cynthia with me today, Cynthia Donovan. I'm going to have her in a second introduce herself, but from what I know, we've met not that long ago, but I feel like we're kind of long lost friends, have been in the same circles for a little bit here and on different Zoom calls and things together, which has been really amazing getting to know you. And I'm a little obsessed at your work and who you are and getting to know you because I think you
Thank
just
you.
have some great things that you're offering the world, but you are a registered dietitian and a nutritionist. I have here, I'm reading my little brief notes so that I got the numbers right, but over 15 years of experience. And
Yeah.
through
I
your
stopped at 15, Erin, because that dates me.
Yeah, right. That's how I feel too. I'm like, I've been doing this for like 20 years, but you have so much experience in this world of nutrition, dietitian, and just through your personal experience and through your professional work that led you into your professional work. You've been helping women really achieve like optimum health. And that is something that we talk about here in the Alchemy Experience. And for the next couple months, this first quarter of the year, as those that are in my world know, I really talk about survival codes. And the first survival code breaking through that barrier, breaking through that survival code into thriving is our health, our mental and physical health. And there's so much to dive into with that. But I think bringing you on and talking about women's health and all the things that go along with it. I'm so excited and grateful for you to be here. So why don't you tell my peeps a little bit about you and who you are and what you do?
Absolutely, Erin, and thank you so much for having me here. I am super excited. Being on podcasting is one of my favorite things to do because it's like we get to have this like deep, meaningful conversation, but also impact other human beings across the world, which is like it's just amazing. Talking about a working smarter, not harder kind of
Like it
approach,
could
right?
be it could be when this comes out next week, or it could be like in a year from now, right? That
Yeah.
somebody listens to it and it lands for them right at the right time. So I
Mhm.
love that.
Absolutely. Or if it doesn't land today, it might land in 6 months. So a little bit about me. So I know Erin already shared I'm a registered dietitian, but I think that is just a small piece of my puzzle. And where my story starts and how we're going to delve into women's health is how I was pretty much. I'm trying to think of a good word to use, but I had lost my menstrual cycle when I don't even know how long I was because I was on the birth control pill. So when I was younger, so I guess let's date back to a teen. When I was younger, doctors put me on a birth control pill, just like here, you have irregular periods, like go on the pill. Okay, cool. Well, I trusted the
Thing you
doctor.
did,
Like,
right? Yeah.
yeah, like of course, you are the doctor. I will do as you say. I think our culture is changing a little bit around that now, which is really great. But nonetheless, I did as I was told, and I took the pill. I got married in 2000, I don't know, 10, whatever. Dates doesn't matter. So I got married. I'm like, oh, I better come off the pill. And because, I'm gonna have babies one day and, do all the right things in the right order and go to college, get married, have a baby, and get a job somewhere in there. So came off the pill. My period was missing. And doctors are like, oh, that's fine. That's normal. Like it happens after coming off the pill. I just want to FYI, I'm going to add in like little plugs in there. So I don't make this story like 10 years long because it literally is. And your period should come back when you come off the pill. If you are in like menstruating years anywhere from the age of, I don't know, 13 to say 50. Uh, and so, anyway, my period didn't come back. Doctors assured me it was normal, wasn't normal. Listened again, and then it came to wedding time, and my period wasn't still there. And I was like, "Oh gosh, it might come back, and I don't want to have it for my wedding day, you know." So went back on the pill, got a period, which when you are on the pill, this is another thing I want to plug, is that when you're on the pill, you do not get a real period. That is a withdrawal bleed. So the only reason why you're bleeding on the pill is because back when the pill was invented, I cannot remember the year, that women wouldn't take it because they thought they were pregnant and that they wanted it to mimic more of a regular cycle. And so they added in, if you want to call them sugar pills, placebo, whatever, but those days that you get a period on the pill aren't a period, it's just the lack of hormones you're no longer getting so that you can bleed and pretend you're having a period. Unfortunately, even those out there that didn't struggle with what I did, which is called hypothalamic amenorrhea, I'll talk about that in a moment. Even then, if you are having any menstrual irregularities, chances are it's going to cover up what is going on. So it is a band aid approach and it will mask any underlying things that are going on, which is really scary. So that's kind of just an FYI. So flash forward, it took me 5 years to get answers from the medical professionals, and finally I got a diagnosis of hypothalamic amenorrhea, and that is pretty much just the missing period caused by low energy availability. Low energy availability, and that pretty much just means like you're not eating enough in accordance to how much you're exercising or moving. So I thought, no, this doesn't make sense because I learned in college as a dietitian, well, this is only for women with eating disorders or women that are super low body weight or women that are athletes, and I fit none of the bills. So come to find out, it doesn't matter. And so for the past, gosh, how many years now? 6, 7 years, I have been advocating for women in to getting more answers or better answers from their doctors into what's going on with them, to not blanket band-aid it up with the pill or a progesterone supplement or treatment. And so I don't want any woman to ever struggle like I did, and not only getting answers, but then once I got the answer of like, this is what you have. Whoa, great. Finally, I have a diagnosis. I was asked to change everything that I worked my ass off to. What I mean by that was I was a dietitian. I was supposed to be healthy. So therefore I ate lots of vegetables and lean protein and worked out every day, and I was disciplined and I was type A, getting all the things on my to-do list done and like following the rules. I was a freaking robot. That's all I want to say is I was a robot. Yeah, a robot. I was a shell of myself. My life was passing by me right in front of my eyes. Anyway, so my hope is that no woman will ever have to struggle with not only getting answers from her doctor, but actually in pursuit of what she has to do to get her period back, which is getting enough of the right foods for her body, getting enough rest, and really working through mindset stuff of like, all right, I'm the perfectionist. I actually just had a new client sign on, and her mom sent her to me, and she said to me, she's like, my parents always told me, like, I need to do everything to the best of my ability. If I'm not going to do it good, don't do it at all. And just, she's like, I'm a perfectionist and I'm trying to do my best. And, the reason why I didn't really reach out to you sooner is because I thought I could do this on my own and I should be able to do it on my own. And so, these women are coming from years and years of, I don't want to call it brainwashing because our parents only did the best they could with what they had. And, we can't be mad at them about all of that. But, we are come into this world as, just blank humans, and then we are programmed. And whether that's by upbringing, social media now, all the things, right? So, anyway, she had shared that with me, and she had also shared that her mom, struggled with disordered eating as well, and that, there's been years of conditioning. And so, women who generally suffer from this HA, I'm going to call it HA for short, tend to be these perfectionist, overachieving women. But I also want to say hypothalamic amenorrhea is a loss of a period. Now, where this gets a little bit tricky is that if you don't have a regular menstrual cycle and you are a super healthy eater or healthy eater, however you want to deem yourself, you're an avid exerciser, you get stressed if you don't exercise or if you don't get your workout in, you're a raging bitch. And like there, I can,
I'm
I
raising
can,
my hand for those of you
yes,
just listening. Like this is all me.
yes. And so while that's not really like, if you have a regular healthy ovulatory cycle, that's not really, I don't really care about that per se,
Mhm.
but also it's something to look at as well. If we don't get our workout in, I know our workouts make us feel good, but if we don't get our workout in, is should we be being a bitch? Like, should that really impact our day that much?
Mhm.
And that's just a food for thought question. I do too love me some workouts, but because I had struggled with wanting to kill somebody if I didn't get a workout in, I had to look at that. But the reason why my period went missing was that on top of a million other things. And so it kind of was front and center in my face. And I had to, oh, my cat just jumped up on top of me. Um, I was just wondering where the dog is. He's not happy with the dog being here. So, anyway, what we want to look out for though as women, I would say right now between, late teens to early 20s, early 30s and early 40s is that if our menstrual cycles are off, particularly that of a lengthening menstrual cycle, a shortened menstrual cycle, a light menstrual cycle, that could be an indication that our lifestyle, whether it's working out intensely, not eating enough when we think we might be eating enough, that could be impacting our menstrual cycle. So, our menstrual cycle is what some professionals out there are trying to deem as like being a fifth vital sign. So, blood pressure is a vital sign. And so we know if we go to the doctors, their blood pressure is off. They're like, okay, what's going on here? Like, let's check everything out. You go to the doctors and you tell your doctor, like, oh yeah, like I missed my period for a month. They'd be like, oh, okay, okay. And what else is going on? Right.
Like, are you
Um,
pregnant? Is there something
yeah.
going
Are
on?
you pregnant?
But we need to like ask more questions about that, right?
Yes. So we need to ask. So we need to be the advocates for ourselves
Yeah.
because, and I don't want to say this is all doctors. I don't want to like shame. I'm not here to shame. There's a lot of like not a lot of research in women's health. So that's kind of why we're in this predicament in the first place. But, you can ask your doctor, okay, well, why didn't you ask me more about my menstrual cycle? And see what happens. Some doctors might be like, oh, are you pregnant? Or, oh, are you stressed? Yeah, I'm stressed. Okay, that's probably why. And so there's probably not going to be much going on there. But knowing after you hear this podcast episode, it might be something to consider and remind yourself that you know your body best, not a doctor. And so anyways, just kind of rewinding to the fact that you don't have to lose a period in order to deem that as like something to look at. It could be a light period. So I call it spectrums of HA. And when we exercise intensely and we don't eat enough, that raises our cortisol and our adrenaline, our stress hormones. And so those stress hormones will impact the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is kind of our control center for, well, a lot of things, but our hormones particularly. And so if we disrupt what's called the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary axis in our brains, that will mess with our menstrual cycle. And so eventually, in some cases, will completely turn off a woman's cycle. And Erin and I were chatting pre-show about kind of perimenopause, and I said, I don't have a ton of experience in perimenopause yet, but as I just turned 40, well, not this year. I'll be 41 this year at the end of the year. I'm starting to think about that. I am starting to think about that. I have not seen any disturbances in my cycle yet, but there's going to be something coming. And so, what I do know about perimenopause, we have to think about it as things like lifestyle, eating, and exercising, even though they're quote unquote good for us. The question lies, what is good for us? Like, what amount of food, what kinds of foods, because everybody is completely different. So, you might be have following the certain routine of exercise since you've been, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s. Well, that may not work for you when you get a little bit older in perimenopause. And so, what we want to do is look at things like what is increasing cortisol, adrenaline, or stress hormones. Okay, well, I can tell you intense, sweaty ass, like bone crushing workouts may that may be something to look at. I'm not saying it should or is going to cause menstrual irregularities, but it's something to look at because it, it just naturally increases cortisol levels in people. And so also eating enough. Just because you're not losing weight doesn't always mean you're eating enough. Especially when you become a little bit older, our metabolism does naturally slow down to a certain extent. And, if we're not eating enough, sometimes our body will hold on to weight. And then the question becomes like, oh my gosh, like I'm not, eating too much because I'm not losing weight, or maybe you're seeing yourself gain weight. And so that's not always a calories in versus calories out thing. Like our bodies don't work that way. And they actually taught me that when I went to school to be an RD. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. There's so many variables. Anyways, I'm not going to credit my dietitian schooling as another layer in my disordered eating, but it definitely impacted me a little bit, Erin. So yeah, with all that said, our menstrual cycle needs to be looked at. And even if it's not a lifestyle thing, if you know your menstrual cycle, but this also means like you can't be on any hormonal contraceptives, which could be like a very non-negotiable for many women. They're like, hell no, like I don't want any more babies, or I don't want babies, or whatever. To know that there are other options out there, but you really won't be able to see your true menstrual health unless you're off of those hormonal contraceptives. So so yeah, that's something to kind of weigh out to be like, all right, should I? And I'm not going to go into like the cons of hormonal contraceptive, but there's a lot of stuff out there that's really not good for our bodies. And do we truly want a synthetic hormone masking our most, I don't want to say our truest self, but like our most connected version of ourselves? So
Oh,
there's also
so
that
good.
to consider, right?
So
Um,
good. Like, is it masking our most connected version to ourselves? That's like such an important question.
mhm.
Because I
Yeah.
think, this goes back to, mental health and physical health are the number one, right? And that's why in the order of the survival codes, the way I teach it is that you have to have your health on point first before you can even move into the second code, which is relationships and building relationships, right? Because you cannot build relationships if you're so sick you can't get out of bed,
Yeah.
whether it's due to mental or physical health, right? And so oftentimes we will take meds, whether it's for our mental or physical health, and this includes contraception, right? Because it is releasing hormones into our body that are not coming from our body, and so um, sometimes we lean on those things and they are tools and they can be great
Yeah.
tools, right? There are some folks that I've seen on different types of medication for medical and physical things, and it has worked for them to stabilize, right? So I don't discount that, and I think it's very important for us to look into the options and the tools. But then sometimes we have to look at that and say, like, is this tool serving its
Mm,
purpose any longer, right? Just like with anything, we're not gonna, use a paintbrush to hang painting, right? We're gonna use it to create it, but we're not gonna use the same tool to actually hang it. And so it's one of those things too. It's like, okay, I didn't want to have children for a period of time, or I wanted, be on birth control. Both you and I, same experience, right? Like we
mhm.
were on birth control for since we were a teenager till probably sometime in adulthood, we were trying to get pregnant or looking at getting pregnant in the future. So we're like, okay, I stopped birth control right around when we were getting married too, a couple months before that, just to be like, okay, let's prepare, And so again, is this the right tool at the right time? And I think, yeah, we are doing a disservice to younger generations of females, um, by saying, hey, this is the only way. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
There's
agree.
absolutely, well, I don't want to speak for everybody. There's like no informed consent about the birth control pill or about hormonal contraceptives. There's just none. And there should be because gosh, I mean, this is me saying this now, but if I knew what I knew now, and again, I'm not trying to like throw the pill under the bus or hormonal contraceptives, but knowing what you can do to prevent pregnancy if that's the reason. Like that's why birth control pills were made. Like if your doctor is going to put you on the pill for acne or irregular periods, like no, like that's not why the birth control pill was made. It was
Yeah.
to prevent having children. And so, if you're not, or if you are trying to prevent having children, there are other ways as well of preventing that. But there's no informed consent, and there's a lot that comes along with hormonal contraceptives. And I don't want to get into a political kind of thing with it because there's all that. But is my journey as a woman, I wish I had informed consent so I could have made a better choice. Now, while it didn't harm me, at that particular time, I don't know what the long-term effects could have potentially been from it. So, and plus, again, going back to what you were just talking about, and like I couldn't even determine if my health was in like true health, right? I couldn't determine it because I was taking something that was masking any kind of menstrual irregularities or disturbances and so forth. So, and I think that's an important point to think about is, are these things that we're taking masking who we truly are? But again, there's the pros and the cons. Like, let's just make sure those pros are like quadruple of the cons,
Yeah.
you know?
Such an important conversation to have with the younger generation and with our generation too. We're both in our early 40s and being able to have the conversation around like what's the next decade going to look like for us in way of our body. And so let's dive in a little bit to the conversation about um how we look at our body, how we take care of our body, not in way necessarily of contraception, but how can we, what's a good barometer of a positive cycle?
Yeah.
And how are we able to have a, better type relationship with our body in that way?
Yeah, yeah. So to touch on the cycle, um, we should be having cycles anywhere from 27 days to about 35 days. That is a quote unquote normal cycle. We also need to be ovulating. So now, as women get older, we might potentially could be skipping ovulations. So there's that. And the way you can confirm if you're ovulating or not is you can take your basal body temperature each morning, which is kind of a pain in the, the butt for sure, sticking a thermometer in your mouth every morning. However, they have made it easier for us by rings and wearables, such as the Aura ring, that will track your basal body temperature. And so when you see a shift in your BBT from going from like low to high and staying high, that will indicate that you in fact ovulated. So then another part of your cycle is your luteal phase. So we have our period, we have our follicular phase, we have our ovulation, and then we have our luteal phase. So luteal phase is when your progesterone is building up enough, and then when you bleed, it's actually that shedding of the progesterone that's built up. If our luteal phase is not long enough in length, meaning like it should be minimum 10 days, that might indicate a progesterone deficiency. And so there's little subtle ways that you could do that, but there needs to be a closer look on your cycle versus like, oh, I get my period every 29 days. Okay, well, are you ovulating? Is your luteal phase long enough? So these can just be subtle ways that we can start to tell if the hormones are starting to fluctuate or are off. So that's one way. And I'm trying to think, if your periods start becoming very light or they're very short in length, like just a few days long, or you're seeing breakthrough bleed from, your normal period, you're getting bleeding like throughout the cycle, which could indicate like if there's anything off from what I said the normal was, like the 27th or 35 day, they're spotting like super heavy periods. Something's going on there. I can't say exactly what, but something like our body is being like, hey, like, look at me here. I'm trying to tell you something. I had, let's see, was it last year? I had some spotting. And of course, because this is my profession, I watch my cycle like a hawk.
Mhm.
And I had some spotting. I'm like, okay, like, you get 1 month, get out of jail free card. You have something irregular happen. Okay. Next month it happens again. No, you got to look at that. So I was having spotting and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, okay, 2 months, 2 months in a row. I'm like, called my OB and I was like, and of course, this is coming from a person that took almost 10 years of advocating for herself. So I am very strong opinionated when it comes to working with medical professionals. So I'm like, give me an ultrasound, give me lab work. This is what I want. And so I had ended up having a polyp, a uterine polyp
Mhm.
that I had to have removed. But without knowing my cycle that well and like being able to know that I need to advocate for myself because they would have been like, oh, yeah, like, something, give it another month or like, oh, go on the pill could have been a thing or whatever. So, so I just want to say, like, our menstrual cycle is something, like, if it's off from that normal, it's something to look at. And do not also settle for, like, oh, you're just going through perimenopause. Okay, well, let's find a way to support that so we can have the most regularity as possible to as long as we can. Oh, you're in menopause. Like, no, you're not in menopause at 40. You're not in menopause at 30. That takes a little bit of time for that to happen. So don't settle for that at all. But unfortunately, most doctors won't be able to tell you how to lifestyle nutritionally treat it and, from more of a holistic, maybe spiritual kind of way. So know that you're probably not going to get that at your doctor. Potentially, I keep my fingers crossed, but you might have to outsource that information to somebody that is in a specialty area. And I'm not saying I'm the girl. I just work with women that have missing periods related to overexercising and undereating. But maybe one day I'll be working in the perimenopause space as I get a little bit older. One thing I did want to say though is to become more a connected version of ourselves to our bodies, to whether you are a man or a woman, if we are exercising and eating to fix our bodies, and what I mean to fix, not like the internal, like, oh, my labs are off or like, my period's missing, but like if we are trying to fix of our image, like our external,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of the word, Erin, uh, the
Our
aesthetics,
yeah.
the aesthetics of like, oh, I need a flat stomach or oh, I need chiseled, biceps or whatever. Like what is that? What is that masking? Like why are we trying to fix the external body? And if you're like, oh, well, it's for my health. No, aesthetics aren't health. Like aesthetics do not equal health. Like if you have like at my depths of my disordered eating with a missing period, someone would look at me and be like, oh my God, Cynthia, like your body, like your workout so good and like all this praise and shit.
Yep.
It was so unhealthy.
I had so many people, you look so amazing, you look so amazing. Back when I was like running marathons daily because I was truly trying to outrun
All the
everything
feels.
happening in my life, right?
Yes.
And so yeah. And
Yeah. So,
it doesn't, you know, it's an interesting dynamic
mhm.
to be praised for something and then you think, okay, this is what I have to keep up with, you know.
Yeah.
And then
That
internally you're dysregulated so much so that your menstrual cycle is trying to actually
tell you something.
change to support that and it's yeah, screaming at you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that we live in this society that is just very, image aesthetic focused, and then we get in this pickle of like, well, I'm getting all this praise and like, oh my gosh, you go to the gym every day, look at these salads. Like that was me as a dietitian. Oh my gosh, Cynthia, you're so healthy. Like I wish I could be as disciplined as you. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm awesome.
Yeah.
um and so even like you wouldn't change, like I wouldn't have changed if it wasn't for my menstrual cycle being off. because it's just so normalized and it's
Yeah.
such ingrained in our culture. This go go go, do, and it's killing us. And guess what? Sometimes, Erin, there's women out there that their menstrual cycles are completely not disturbed.
Hmm.
And now the question becomes like, do you really want to live your life that way? Do you really want to live your life that way where every single food you put in your mouth, or if you don't get your workout in, like you couldn't eat this, or like you couldn't focus, or whatever it may be that's taking you from being connected with your body
Hmm.
and connected with other humans in your life?
Hmm.
That's something, regardless, that's something to look at. And I think, body image, controlling our food and exercise is an easy, I don't want to say it's easy because most people would be like, it's so hard for me. How do you do it? Um, but it is I don't want to say easy. I got to think of a better word, but we can control that. Like we can say, all right, I'm putting this in my mouth or I'm going to the gym or whatever. We can control that.
Yeah.
We really pretty much can't control much else in life, can we?
Yeah, the way I label these things is it's simple, not easy, right? So
Simple.
it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
simple, right? It's simple to get up every day and write down what we're grateful for, but it's not easy. It's simple to get up every day and go for a walk, but it's not easy, right? So there's a simplicity concept that we often think ease, right? That if this thing, it's simple to say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to have some water in the morning and I'm going to just sit here and I'm going to just process the last
Yeah.
24 hours for 5 minutes just to
Gonna feel all my feels. Yeah.
right? Just to sit with myself and let myself digest like what I just this ball of light is like in my face today. But just digest, what we've gone through in the last 24 hours. It's there's simplicity in that. And we think if something is simple, it should be easy. And
Mm,
that's just not true, right? Like our cycle is so simple. There's the four stages, right? The sleep cycle is so simple. There's the handful of stages. Like there's a simple process, but it doesn't mean it's easy to be followed if we're not adequately doing the things consistently to stay in that ease, and it can be such a challenge, but yeah,
yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
this conversation is eye-opening. There's so many questions just personally I have that I'm like, I want to ask it. Like everything you're saying, I'm like, when we're done recording, I've got to ask her.
Yeah.
But like, so I
Write that one down.
know, I know that so many people that are listening are really like, oh my goodness, I need to understand more because there isn't enough. It's really mind-boggling to me that we have, hundreds of thousands of years of like women being around, but we don't have any research
Yeah.
about women's health. And especially in the last, I would say 20 years, right? Since we were teenage stage-ish, maybe a little more than that, but teenage stage-ish, where we were exposed to birth control because our parents really weren't. They were, but there wasn't the options hormonally that there are now, right? So like in the last 20 to 30 years, there's nothing yet. It's coming. I know they're starting to dive into it, but we just don't have enough research yet to show
Yeah.
you know? And so I think it's really going to be interesting because I think during our lifetime and you doing what you're doing and then me being on the mental health side of it, like we're going to see so much unpacked in the next couple decades of this work.
Yes. That's
So,
that's what I'm hoping. And I just want to say, Aaron, to full circle this with because I started out with my story. You said there's the simple things, but the simple things don't mean that it's easy. And so when I found out I had to eat more and I had to rest more, I'm like, oh yeah, simple. That's all I gotta do. No, because these simple things aren't easy because there's layers deep of trauma of how you were brought up, how your identity of who you were maybe as a late teen, early 20s, whatever. Like there's so many layers deep of these simple things that we can do that just aren't easy because of that. And so it wasn't until I started unpacking these not so easy things as when I finally was able to become a mom. And so, and then the work has never stopped.
Yes,
So,
because now that we're moms, we want to show our kids a way of life of how to take care of yourself. And you can't just tell them this is what you do. You got to embody it,
oh yeah.
right? So
Yep.
that's the work, right? That's the legacy. So,
Yes.
what a beautiful conversation. Thank you for sharing your
Yes.
story, even if it was a snippet. I know you share more about your story throughout your social media and kind of just who you are and how you operate in supporting women. I'm going to quick tell one thing. I think it's important this conversation for men too. Um,
Mm,
because if men understand to a degree the process of what women are going through, relationships, especially romantic partnerships, can be so much more
mm,
clear. Again, not
mm,
easy, but there's simplicity in understanding it. And this is something as a boy mama that I have a whole episode on this. I can make sure people listen to it, but I've had a conversation with my oldest in the car. It's when we always have the best convos around
yes.
girls getting their period and what that looks like. And like, he's like, Mom, I know, it's a couple of years ago. He's 13 now. He's like 11 and a half at the time. And I was like, listen, your friends are going to start to get their period and we're not going to call them gross or disgusting or stupid or wrong. Like
Mm,
we need to be understanding that, and I equated it to like getting an erection, right? Do you want everybody to know? Do you want people to see you walking around?
yeah.
Like that's uncomfortable. And he's like, geez, Mom, no. And I'm like, right. I go,
Yeah.
this is what girls go through, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't want people to know. We're trying to keep, right? But we support each other because it's human
Yeah.
nature. This is what we're supposed to go through. So
Hmm.
I think it's just as important at a young age that, developmentally appropriate, but
Yes.
that us moms and dads have these conversations with our kids so that we're not completely blindsided by these things and we
Yeah.
can support each other. So I'm hopeful that women can hear this, men can hear this. We can talk about it more openly. We can discuss these things. You are a wealth of knowledge. For people that want to tap into your world, where is the best way to find you?
Yes, thank you, Erin. You guys can find me. You could head on over to Instagram, period.nutitionist. Or if you're more of a podcaster and not an Instagrammer, I also have a podcast called the Period Recovery Podcast. And although we do talk about periods, we talk about the layers deep of things that are going on in order to be the best versions of ourselves. So
Yeah, amazing. It's an amazing podcast. You are just a wealth of knowledge in this arena. And I think even if you are stable in what you're going through now, educate yourself, right? From somebody who's been through it personally and professionally. Tap into Cynthia's world. Your Instagram stuff is just on point, and I love watching what you're doing, and I love supporting you. I'm so grateful to have you on the show, and hopefully we can take time and dive in as we start to go through our own stuff and maybe get into the perimenopause stuff at some point, or just have you on the show again because I think there's much deeper specifics we can go into. But this has been so great. What I like to end every show with is if there's one little nugget, one little thing you want to share with my peeps today, what would it be?
I would say trust yourself. You know your body better than anybody out there. Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your boyfriend, your husband, your doctor, especially. Advocate for yourself. Trust yourself.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Erin.
Till next time, guys, take care of yourself. I love you and go set the world on fire. Thanks for tuning in to the Alchemy Experience. If this episode lit something up inside you, go ahead and share it with someone who's ready to rise too. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me online on all social media at the Alchemy Experience. Because transformation loves company, and together we all rise. And hey, don't just survive this week. Thrive like you frickin' mean it. Let's go let it up. Talk soon.